Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, so the last session here is going to be about using Zoho Analytics to make data-informed decisions. So, what is the agenda? First, we're going to talk about why use Zoho Analytics at all. After all, if we've been using Zoho's various tools, we've probably seen that all of them have analytics built in. So first, I'm going to talk about why would you actually want to make the move to purchase Zoho Analytics or use Zoho Analytics separately. Then we're going to talk about how do you unify your data, how do you cleanse and prep your data for cleaner and better analytics. We're going to talk about how you get insights from it, how you work with the analytics inside Zoho Analytics, how you share all of the insights that you find once you've put together your reports, and then some resources. So we got a lot to get through. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, why not in-app analytics? There's a few different reasons why you might want to use Zoho Analytics instead of whatever app's built-in thing. So the number one thing is you have a lot more control over building your reports and sharing your reports. So usually there's going to be some amount of report building most Zoho apps give you, but it's not going to be nearly as in-depth as what Zoho Analytics will give you. So another reason would be to blend data from several sources. So if you want to be able to take data perhaps from your CRM and take data from Zoho Books and combine those things together and work with it in one place, you can't really do that in Books, you can't really do it in CRM, but you can do it in Analytics because it connects in to both of those other applications. So that could allow you to ask and answer more interesting questions, such as, what percentage of our sales reps have we actually invoiced for? So we can get a more accurate measure of revenue than just whatever CRM says deals are closed, right? Ultimately, invoices are going to be the final measure of revenue received. And you're not just tied into Zoho. You can also connect a bunch of third-party things into analytics. So I'll talk about some of those examples in a bit. Another reason to use Zoho Analytics is to see longer-term historical trends. So this isn't the case everywhere anymore, but a lot of our apps, when you look at their built-in analytics, they show you 1 year or half a year worth of data, and then you can't really go back and see something far into the past. So with Zoho Analytics, you can keep all of your data over time, see changes year by year. Finally, we have other advanced features that are a part of analytics that you won't find elsewhere. So this could be the ability to have some forecasting reports where the AI will try to predict, given a set of data, what's going to happen with that moving forward. And then there's also things like using Zia to build reports using conversational AI. So another question you may be having is, why do I need this newfangled analytics tool when I could just keep working in my spreadsheets? I'm used to my spreadsheets after all, and I love them. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to use an analytics tool. One, perhaps the most important, is that you're going to get really up-to-date information. So when you're working from a spreadsheet, you're always going to have to deal with, is this data up to date? Maybe you're going to have to gather that data again every single month. You're going to have to go through exporting it, adding spreadsheets together. It's 2024 and we don't have to do it anymore. So that's nice. When you use an analytics tool like Zoho Analytics, instead of having to go through that really long process every single month or every single week, however often you get your data, you can just hook up these connections, and then every 3 hours it automatically pushes in the newest data for you. So that is hecka easier, as we say in the Bay. Also, you can work with bigger data. So spreadsheets, like Excel, it's limited to about 1 million rows. If you want to work with 1 billion rows, then you could use Zoho Analytics. With spreadsheets, it can be notoriously complicated to have control over who is seeing which information. So when you use something like Zoho Analytics, you have a lot more control over which data each person sees. Are they allowed to export that data? Can they drill down into it, or can they just see the high-level data? You get controls over all those kinds of things. And then perhaps most important of all, if you're all working from this one shared analytics workspace, then everybody has a single source of truth, which is really difficult when you're working with spreadsheets, and each person has their own spreadsheet, and they could be from different times, they might not match up, and so there's no single source of truth. And so then you end up with this situation where you have like last quarter sales figures, final -5 .xlsx, which, you know, it doesn't really instill a lot of confidence to open a file like that you're actually seeing the real final version, or the version that has all of the numbers in one place. So when you're using an analytics tool, that is no longer a problem because everyone's working from the same shared source of data. Now, I'm going to kind of do a thing where I keep switching back and forth between demoing and my slides. So first, let's talk about importing data. So because we're in the marketing track, I wanted to put this slide up. And again, these slides will be sent out, but these are the current marketing integrations we have with Zoho Analytics. So if you're using anything like, I don't know, let's say you have a LinkedIn account and you want to monitor engagement on your company's LinkedIn. If you're using Google Analytics and Google Search Console to find out what's happening with your website, or you're paying for ads on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, or you're using an app like, God forbid, HubSpot, any of our various evil competitors, or Zoho Campaigns. All these things connect into Zoho Analytics. Basically, what does it mean that it's integrated? It means that you can easily import your data in, and that we create a bunch of pre-made dashboards and reports for each one of these integrations, which are going to show you a bunch of the things that you probably want to look at as it is. So let's switch over to demo mode now. So this is Zoho Analytics. Let's talk about importing data. So if I just click this create button, and then I can go to new table / import data, you'll see that there are all of these little tiles with a bunch of logos that we all recognize. So these are all of the different things that have integrations into Zoho Analytics. So first things first, a lot of us are going to be starting from spreadsheets. So you can import your CSV, your Excel spreadsheet, add those into Zoho Analytics. We also have feeds and URLs. So if you have like a database or a web service that is hosting something in like a CSV format, you can have that like automatically be feeding into Zoho Analytics. You can connect your feeds. And you'll see when I go to the feed section, there's like this authentication area. So if you have like an API, which feeds in a CSV with a bunch of data, that's one way to get your data into Zoho Analytics. It's a bit more manual though. Cloud storage. So there's a bunch of different actually cloud storage / drive options. I'll show some of these. So Google Drive, Dropbox, WorkDrive, you know, any of those big cloud storage services where your spreadsheets might be hiding, we have integrations which make it easy to just import those directly. And then we have databases and data lakes. So there's a bunch of different, the most commonly used databases you can connect into analytics. And then finally, we have other categories, which are more like industry-specific things. So like this is the marketing category. All the things that were on that slide that I was talking about earlier are in the marketing category. So if we wanted to, for example, I don't know, connect in like Zoho Campaigns data, I would just click on Zoho Campaigns, and then it's going to give me a series of options. It says like, which data do you want to pull in? How often do you want to pull it in? And it's all just kind of clicking through a wizard. It's pretty easy to set up. All right, so that was importing data. Now I want to talk about the data model. So the data model, if I click on the data section, so over on the left-hand side of analytics, these are like the key areas that you go to. Data is where it keeps all of your raw tables of data that you're importing. So when you connect an application like a Zoho CRM, you can see that like each module in CRM becomes its own table here. So like our contacts is one table of data, our deals is another one. And then a lot of times you're going to want to be able to connect that data together, right? Like to understand the deal object, we need to understand, well, that deal is associated with a contact or an account or a sales rep, and we have separate tables for each one of those. But obviously, it's kind of a pain trying to link all these different tables of data together. So the model diagram, which is down at the bottom there, shows you all of the data relationships in your analytics workspace. So, you know, if you're used to working with data, you've probably seen these kinds of diagrams before. So what's nice about this is analytics is generating this for you automatically. So you don't have to draw out the diagram. You can just go into the system and see how things are all connected. But beyond that, it's also making the connections for you. Like, I don't have to go in and set it up and tell it how a contact is related to a deal. Zoho Analytics knows how the structure in Zoho CRM is formatted. It builds all those connections for me as soon as I turn on that integration, and it diagrams it out so I can see how it was done. So you can always go in and you can manually connect things. You know, each person's implementation might be different. They might have some custom modules in their CRM that they want to have show up in there. They might want to tie that into data from some other app that's not made by Zoho. You can still build those custom relationships between tables, and everything that you build is going to end up showing up here. And I know this is probably hard to see, but it color codes things for you too. So for each table that you hover over, it color codes it and it highlights all these arrows, and basically the color of the arrow and the direction it's headed indicates, like, is this table a parent or a child of another table, and which field is it using to link these up? So that is the data model in Zoho Analytics. So if you have ever had another person join your company, like maybe you've hired a data analyst and they come in and they're like, okay, how's everything set up? And you just go, well, Steve has this one spreadsheet and it's connected to this other one that Jane made, but I don't really know how, and they both quit like 3 years ago. That's a big problem, right? Because you don't really understand how to build any reports at that point. You don't really know if it's getting all your data. So if you ever have somebody else replace you, or if you ever have somebody else join your team, then having the data model can be super, super helpful. Okay, that is the data model. So let's reveal the next tile, pre-made dashboards. Let's take a look at some of the pre-made dashboards. So we've been focusing on this like data zone in Zoho Analytics so far, and now I want to move over to the dashboard area. This is everybody's favorite part of Zoho Analytics. So there are a bunch of different dashboards in this particular account. I can search for them by name, so I don't have to scroll through that list every time if I want to. Let's just pull open, oops, that's not what I meant to click. Let's pull open this overview dashboard. Okay, so here's like an overview of some sales data, it looks like, right? So we have like the pipeline by amount and stage. So we can see our sales pipeline broken down into these different stages. And when I hover over one of these like colored pieces of the report, it gives me more details about it. So we can see like, okay, the qualification stage, that might be the first stage we've mapped out in our sales process. And I can hover over that and I can quickly see like 25% of our deals are in that stage. And I can see an estimation, $510,000. That's how much money we're estimating is tied up at that stage in the sales process. So this allows us to see, where is the money in the process? Are we moving deals through our sales process fast enough? So this is just one of many dashboards that gets created for you automatically. I'm actually going to switch over to another workspace, and I'll show you a few more pre-made dashboards. This is one I really like to show, the executive dashboard. So this is a dashboard, if you're using Zoho 1 and you're really making use of like a bunch of Zoho applications and you've turned on the connection of all those Zoho applications to Zoho Analytics, then it's going to pull in a bunch of stuff and generate this executive dashboard for you automatically. So this is just like a demo account. So like there's some things where, I don't know, we just haven't entered data for them or something. But we can see basically a bunch of key things that an executive might want to look at to get an overview of how our business is doing. So we can see like, okay, what were our marketing expenses in 2022? What's our customer lifetime value? That's a huge one. Whoa, I just made it huge right when I said that. Customer satisfaction rate. So that could be coming from a survey. Active customers. What's our average NPS? What's our ROI on our marketing campaigns, right? So those are a bunch of key stats that we might want to look at. Here's another funnel, and this one is using data from the CRM, but it's also using data from Sales IQ. So we're getting visitors, that's people who visited our website, to shipment delivered. And that's coming from like Zoho inventory probably. So it's mashing up data across a bunch of your Zoho apps to show you what are, some key things you might want to look at. Revenue versus expenses month by month. We can see things like that. Also, this is everyone's favorite, the sales by region. So we're not just stuck to pie charts and bar charts. We can do maps, and we can do heat maps for different areas geographically. So we'll come back to that one a little bit. And because we're in the marketing session, I'll just show one more example. We have this marketing ROI dashboard. This one is probably where you would want to live if you were doing a bunch of like ad campaigns. And so because we have connections that are pre-set up with Google ads, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Instagram ads, basically all of the most popular online ad services, we know how they structure their data, and we can format these things for you automatically. So this is showing you a bunch of key things like what's your ROI as a percentage, what's your ROI as a flat amount, what's your average lead acquisition cost, your ROI broken down by campaign, your ROI by location, so the bigger circles equals higher ROI. So there's a lot of really juicy stuff in there. And then what's great about these dashboards is you can come up to the top and you can change these filters. So you can add a filter in here that will set it to a different time frame, and it will update all of the things in that dashboard to fit that date filter all in one go. And then I'll just show you real quick the Google Analytics built-in dashboards. So if you use Google Analytics and you connect that into your Zoho Analytics, or you use Google Ads, and you connect that into Zoho Analytics, then it generates what's your average cost per click, what's your average cost, your click rate, your click-through rate, monthly impressions versus clicks. There's all kinds of stuff that you would want to be looking at in here. So this is all pre-generated, all pre-made for you automatically. Super useful stuff. So that's pre-made dashboards. And one of the cool things about analytics, if you're just getting into using it, is that we have a bunch of sample dashboards which you can take a look at on our website. So I tried this earlier. Yeah, it still doesn't let me click the links for some reason, but I'll show you how you find this. If we go to, I'll just search like Zoho Analytics sample dashboards. And yeah, this first link has it. So there's a page under the Zoho Analytics site, which has a bunch of these sample dashboards, and you can open up any one of these to see like what kinds of things we generate for you. And then what's cool about this too is if you're just like still kind of in a experimenting, learning how this works phase, you can connect these to your account or copy the workspace. So you can just have like a dummy dashboard that you have as like one of the workspaces in your analytics account, and you can go in there and like mess around with things and not have to worry about anything being messed up because it's all fake data anyways. So that's a really useful feature for when you're getting started. It's the sample dashboards. Okay, writing formulas. So now we're getting into the dark art of how do you kind of prep your data, cleanse your data, organize it better. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to open back up this deals data from Zoho CRM. So when I open up my raw deals data, you can see that it's basically just showing it as like a spreadsheet. But this is all being imported from my CRM deal records. So we have all these different columns here. So basically, what a formula could allow us to do is to take all of this raw data and group it into buckets. So we might not want to just have like a chart where we're using the exact deal amount from every single deal, right? Because every single deal is going to be some very specific number for that particular customer. We might want to analyze this in buckets where we say, okay, let's look at all of our customers who have a deal between $0 and $20,000. That's one bucket. Next bucket, $20,000 to $40,000. Next bucket, $40,000 to $60,000, right? So we can group these things by using the formula builder. So I was going to show you how it has some of these formulas already pre-set up, but because I, for some reason, cannot scroll, you'll just have to believe me on that. But what I can show you is that we can now use AI to try and write a formula that does such a thing automatically. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit add, and I am going to add in a formula column. So a formula column is, it's basically just like adding in an Excel formula where you just drag the formula down and it does the same calculation for every single cell. So I'm going to call this like group deal amount by buckets. We can rename that later. And then it gives me this formula builder. So I can choose columns over here. Like I can just click on, where is it? Like I can search amount. There we go. And it'll tell me the exact name I have to use to get the amount column into my formula. I could do times, plus, minus, divide, right? So I can write my formula like that. There's also a bunch of functions which are broken down into different categories. So there's date functions, there's logical functions, and we give you these tooltips when you hover over any of the function types that kind of explains like what are the things you have to put into it to get it to work. So that is the old school way of writing functions. It's pretty much looks like a SQL query if you're used to doing that. But we've also recently added in this new feature. So if you have an account with OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT, then you can get an API key from them and you can connect your OpenAI account and you can try and use ChatGPT to write a formula. So I'm going to give this a go, and it's AI, so we never really know if it's going to work. So you can all heckle me and laugh, I guess, if it doesn't work on the stage, but I'm going to give it a go. So I'll say group the amount column into increments of $20,000 going from 0 to $100,000. Let's see if this works. I hit generate. Okay, it's produced something, but does it actually work? This is what we will find out. So it looks like it's going to work. I'm seeing like a greater than, less than, 20,000, 40,000. I hit save. Okay, so 80 to 100K, and the amount is 95,000, so that's working. Can we see if there's any other values in here? Maybe we need to sort it so we get more different kinds of values. Okay, so the sum are blank. But remember, I said only from 0 to 100,000, and this says 218,000. So it followed my orders perhaps a little too literally, but it is still working. And then we have 0 to 20K, 11,000. Yeah, so we all know AI is a little hit or miss, but give it a try. I mean, it's a lot better than trying to figure out how to write that manually or doing like 10 Google searches before you find the one guy who like pasted the answer in a forum 5 years ago. So now I want to talk a bit about using data prep. So Zoho Data Prep is another tool that Zoho makes that integrates really closely into Zoho Analytics. And it's particularly useful for when you're dealing with messy or messed up or crummy data. So this is data prep. I'm going to open up my workspace here, and I'm going to add a data set. So when you're using data prep, it looks really similar to the import I was just showing you for analytics. There's all these little tiles. These are all the different things that we have integrations with, which make it super easy to get your data into here. So there's like a Zoho app category. And you'll notice in Zoho apps, we have analytics as an option. So if you already put your data in analytics, then it's really easy to just go from analytics straight to data prep. You clean the data in data prep, and then you push it back to analytics. So that's one option. But for now, I'm just going to hit Files. And there is this lovely feature where you can try sample data. So if you're just trying to learn how this product works, this is another good place to start. You could just get some dummy data in here. It's not going to hurt anything. So I'll just import sample leads, sample items, and we'll upload those into our workspace. Okay, great. So let's go into sample leads. All right. So this is a bunch of leads, like leads you might have in a CRM system, for example. And when I open this up in Zoho Data Prep, the first thing it shows me is this window on the right here. So we have this little donut thing. And the donut thing is telling us how good this data is, judging us. So it says 93% is valid, and then 0% invalid. That's good. But then we see 6.5% is missing data. So one of the things you can do with data prep is you can try to like fill in some of that missing data. Let's take a look at our other data set. So we're looking at sample leads first. Now let's look at sample items. Okay, so here's another one that shows more what I wanted to get to. So this one shows us we have less missing data, more valid data, but we still have 2.5% of our data is not valid. It's not looking good. So we can then try and figure out, okay, well, where is all this bad data coming from? And data prep does a nice thing for us, which is that it color codes each column and shows you for that column how good or bad is the data. So if the column is all green, that means things are looking good. And if there's some red in there, that means something is messed up about this column of data. So I'm going to focus on this price column. And if we zoom in here, does anybody want to guess why this data is perhaps not valid? You can call it out. $ versus USD. That is right. So we have different formats for entering in the price, and that is going to be a no-go when we're using an analytics tool, because analytics likes to have everything really neat, really formatted, and so it's going to mess up and it's not going to be able to recognize all of these as the right kind of data. So what can we do to fix that? Well, first, I can just highlight where it says USD. And you notice if I just highlight that in one cell, it highlights it in all of the other cells in this column that have it. But I see that there's some other ones here where it's not highlighted. So I'll also highlight this one that's a $, this one that says USDD we want highlighted. And then over here, we can take a look at what kind of operations might fix this. And so when I hover over these different operations for cleaning up the data, it tries to make some guesses over what I might be trying to do. So this first one here, it's showing me the preview. So the preview, it's showing me the original data on the left side and what would happen after this operation on the right side. So do I want to just extract all the things that say $ or USD and get rid of the numbers? No, not really. But let's take a look at this next one. Okay, this is getting us close. So it's giving me the numbers, but now I'm noticing there's some places where I didn't actually select where it says USDD. So I'm going to select this one. and those should get added in there. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Now when I hover over this option, it's replacing all of those different formats and just spitting out a decimal value. So I'm just going to click on that, and I'm going to hit apply, and then it's going to take its time, but it's basically going to just create another version of my price column where we've gotten rid of all of those pesky dollar signs. And now we see the data quality 0% invalid, so things are looking a lot better. So another example of how you can use this could be to match up things where maybe it's not going to notice all the time if your data is invalid. So let's take a look at this brand column here. When I click on the brand column of all these different items that we've sold, it gives me a histogram, which shows me the breakdown of where all these values are. So we can see this really big blue bar means most of the things we sold are Samsung, we've got Sony, Yamaha, all these different ones. But we also have some misspelled, yucky, gross data in here. So we have like Samsung with a space, Smasang, Smasung, all these different things. Okay, so what can we do to try to fix this problem? So if we click on the little arrow icon for this column, this shows a bunch of the operations that data prep has for us that are like common things we might want to do. And there is a lot of them, but I'm going to draw your attention to this unassuming one near the bottom called cluster and merge. It's very, very powerful. So what this does is it uses what it calls a metaphone algorithm to determine if there are variants of the same word in that column that should really all be merged down to one. So basically it can detect if it thinks, oh, there's a bunch of people that misspelled Samsung and probably these were all meant to be the same thing, and it can actually fix this for us. So I can see all these different versions of Samsung that it found, and then I can say, what do I want to replace them with? And I'll just type in Samsung, and then StarTech. I didn't even notice this one, but we have StarTech. StarTech was with a space, startech.com. So I can replace all those with one value. And then if I hit apply, then it's going to merge all those down and clean up our data. And now we have something much nicer to report off of, where we don't have all these weird like extra bars on our bar chart that's like, yeah, I'm sorry that's there, boss, if people misspell Samsung all the time. There's nothing I can do about it, right? So that's how data prep works in a nutshell. But the thing that's really cool about it is that it creates these rule sets. So each action I've taken so far has been saved as part of this rule set. And what's cool about the rule set is that that's basically like automating all this stuff I just did. So if the next month my sales team is a sales team and they continue doing what they do, because that's what sales teams do, they're going to give me a bunch of sloppy data and they're going to keep misspelling Samsung, even though I've asked them not to, right? I can just take this rule set and run next month's data through that rule set, and I don't even have to go through and configure this all again. It's going to automatically clean up those columns the same way I just cleaned this one up. So if you have like data you're getting regularly and there's no way to clean it because you can't, I don't know, make your single line field into a multi-select field or something like that, then this is, really powerful that you can just automate that and run it through there again. And then when you're done, you can export and push that data back into analytics. Now that's all cleaned up, and start doing your reporting off of that. So that's data prep. Ask Zia and forecasting. This is one of the features people get really excited about in Zoho Analytics. So we're jumping back to Zoho Analytics. And one of those like 4 key things or 5 key things on the left is Ask Zia. And Ask Zia is basically the closest thing we have to like our own chat GPT, which is where you can chat to Zia and ask it to generate reports for you. So Zia does its best to try to understand, based off of the names of all the columns in your data tables or the data structure of the apps you've integrated, what you're looking for. So let's give it a try. I'll say, show me sales by items, and it will do its best to guess what data could be used to make that report. So let's see how Zia did. Pretty good. I mean, it's broken down all these different items. It does seem to be going in like descending order, and I hover over these and it's showing me total invoice amount. So yeah, that is sales by items. One thing that's cool about Ask Zia is that I can then ask follow-up questions. So if Zia doesn't get exactly what I want, or she does get what I want, but suddenly I realize I have another question on top of that, I can ask for a follow-up. So I can say like, just top 5. And now it's showing me those top 5 items by sales, and it's cut out all the other ones that I don't want to look at. I can also do different kinds of things like make it a pie chart. So if I wanted to look at this data a different way, I can request things like that. So I showed this like a few years ago when it first came out, and everyone was like, wow, this is amazing, the future is here. And now I show this feature and we're like, we've all seen ChatGPT do a million things. We're jaded, we don't care. But I think it's pretty nice. You don't have to, go into the builder and build it all from scratch if you can use Zia. And Zia is not going to be 100% perfect all the time, but Zia can get you pretty close. So once Zia generates something for you, you can save it. You can add it to a dashboard. So if you don't save it, it's just going to be gone. But if you like what Zia did, you can just save it, and now you have that report built. You can come back to it whenever you want. Let's go and forecast. Sales forecast. Okay. So here's a report showing the forecasting feature. I don't know if this is working great with our dummy data, but one of the things you can do with your reports is you can turn on this like AI forecast ability. So basically it shows you data in a solid line up until a certain point, and then it'll forecast with like a dotted line what it thinks will happen in the future. And it's actually pretty complicated how this all works. They analyze like a lot of things like the overall trend of your data. So like if your company is growing year by year, it'll account for that when predicting what your sales will be like next summer, right? But it also accounts for things like seasonality. So if your sales are always lower in the winter, then it's going to predict a lower value for the winter. So it takes a look at a whole bunch of different parameters in your data and spits out a forecast. Okay, that's Ask Zia and forecasting. Now let's talk about the drill down. So I'm going to go back to our executive dashboard. I'm going to pop open this sales by region report. So one of the great things about using analytics, again, that's better than a spreadsheet, is that it's really great for when you just like kind of want to experiment. Like a lot of times you don't necessarily know what the best question is to ask of your data until you're just kind of sitting and looking at it, and you just sort of start playing around, and suddenly you realize like, oh, I could probably figure out this thing, and that would be like really helpful to us. So one example is this sales by region report. So maybe I'm looking at California and I'm thinking, well, we want to do an ad campaign. Should I just target it to the state of California? Well, I could actually drill down. So if I click on the state, I can hit this drill down by button, and then it gives me all the columns that are feeding into this report. So I'll just type in city, and I'll choose like the lead city from Zoho CRM. And I'll zoom out a little bit. And basically, it's generated now a heat map just for our data from California. So now we can see like, oh, actually, our sales in California is centered around Sacramento and Palo Alto, and it looks like the LA area generally. So instead of targeting the whole state, which may not be super relevant, now I can target much more specifically, right? So with drill down, you can always ask more interesting questions by filtering your data set and just looking at a little piece of it. So drill down, super, super useful. You should definitely be using it. It's not just on map reports. You can do it on any kind of report. And that brings me to sharing insights. So sharing insights is basically what are all the different ways you can share your data once you have it in Zoho Analytics. So there's quite a few options, honestly, and I'll do my best to kind of break this down for you. But basically, any dashboard or any report will have like a share button at the top. And there's different options within the share button for how you can share it. So one, I can get an embed link. So if I just want to like embed this on a website or in a slide deck, that's one option. Two, I could hit share this view. So this is like the simplest one. I literally just enter in a list of email addresses and I can choose like what permissions I want to give those specific people. And the permissions that I can control, I can enable different kinds of read options. So do I want them to be able to export the data, right? I might want to show somebody like an overview of our sales revenue, but not have them export every single customer record from my CRM, right? So a lot of times you probably want to leave that unchecked. View underlying data. Again, I might want to show somebody my sales revenue, but not have them see every single customer record from my CRM. There's all kinds of reasons why you might want to constrain these things. The drill down. So you can turn drilling down on or off for different people. So you can control like, oh, I don't want them to be asking too many questions with this data. They might find out something horrible. So that's the way that you can filter who gets to see what. Now, there's a few more options here. Make this view public is an interesting one. It comes with a few different options. So one is you can have it access with a login. So basically, somebody's going to have to be logged in on their Zoho account in order to see it. And you can control, do I want to share this to everyone in my analytics organization, which is just users of Zoho Analytics on my Zoho account, everyone in my Zoho organization, so that would just be any user that's part of my Zoho org, or public on the web. So that would just mean like anyone can see it if they have the link. So those are different options that you're given for how you want to share it. Another way to share things is that you can email them out. So when I hover over this email thing, there's a few different options. You can email it out like as a PDF, or you can do like an HTML fancy boy email. And when you send out the email, you can set it as a schedule. And this is a great feature. So when your boss goes, I want that report on my desk by Monday, the first Monday of the month. Because that's what bosses sound like. This is a great way to just automate that, right? You can have that report. You can say, all right, monthly, every 1 month, it's going to be on the 1st. What time I want it to arrive. You can set up a name so you can have multiple different schedules. And basically, you can just set up like how often you want that to be sent out. And then you can have the report as an attachment. You can have it just as an inline thing. So there's a lot of different ways that you can configure how this looks. Okay, so that's emailing it out. The slideshows. So sometimes your boss wants that report, but he doesn't want it waiting on his desk on the 1st of the month. He goes, I want that report in a slide deck on the 1st of the month, and I want you to present it. So there's this slideshow button. And if you hit slideshow, what it does is it lets you add in specific reports onto a slide deck, and then you can edit that slide deck using Zoho Show, which is basically like PowerPoint. So I'll show you, let's see, here's one sales monthly revenue report. Let's see what this one looks like. Wow. Okay, this is cool. So it lets you embed reports right onto the slide deck. And then another thing that's cool about the slide deck thing is we also have this feature called Zia Insights. So if you turn on the Zia Insights option, then Zia will try to analyze what is like the notable things about this data set, and it'll add those onto your slide deck. And you're not just stuck with whatever Zia spits out because it's an AI, and so half the time it's going to sound really stupid. you can delete any Zia insight that you don't want to have on that slide deck and then add in your own. So, I can look in and it says like total amount between January and May was $96 million. Like, right, I would probably want to format this. This could be useful to know. Like, okay, our sales for this quarter was 96 million or whatever. That might be how I want to frame that. But it pulls out some interesting stats that I may want to be highlighting while I'm presenting this. So that is the Zia the Zia Insights. That is the slideshow. And real quick, I'll just show you editing the slideshow. So it opens it up in this like slideshow builder. You can't see the report while you're editing it, so you have to hit play if you want to actually load the report. But then you can just come in here and just edit this, delete it, make it say whatever you want. Okay, so that is different ways to share. These are all of the things that I have demoed for you over the course of this hour. It was quite a lot. And this slide, the sharing options, I'm just including this because we're sending out the slides. So I thought there's a lot of different ways you can share. You might want to see an overview of these things. The portal is one last sharing method that I'll briefly cover here. So I have one open here. The portal lets you create basically like a view. So I can say, all right, I'm going to make a portal. I'm going to put in my executive dashboard, and then I'm also going to put in my marketing dashboard. And then I can share that portal with like specific people in my business with like a login, so only they can see it. Basically, if your boss is like, every time I see Zoho Analytics, there's all these things and I want to click on them and I'm confused and I don't know what to do, just give him the portal. He doesn't have to deal, or she doesn't have to deal with all of the complicated, navigating the interface of a new application. You can just show them what they want to see. Alerts, this is just showing, we have this feature where you can set an alert when a value goes to a certain threshold. So for example, your sales go above or below a certain amount in a given time period, you can set up an automated alert. And that can go out via email, can go out via Slack, Microsoft Teams. And now that I said Slack and Microsoft Teams, I'm sure you're wondering, well, what about Zoho Click? I'm always using Zoho Click. I can't use Zoho Click. No, we don't have Zoho Click integrated yet. And you may be thinking, but you're Zoho. I thought all of your stuff was integrated. And I'm sorry, we're working on it. But I do have a workaround for you. If you get the Zoho Analytics mobile app, you put that on your phone, and then you enable, I'm going to zoom in here, in-app notification. Now you have a way to get it right on your phone. As long as you have that app and you have push notifications turned on, you can get that notification right away. So that was it.